Welcome back, everyone, here to Brax Talks. And today we got a very special video. We are going to be talking about what will it take to make the Yankees a championship caliber team. And we are joined here with Jason from 161 River Ave. So let's get right into it. Christian, would you like to start it
off? Sure. Jason, thanks for coming back on the channel. We had you on, I think, episode 4, our first real special guest. That was pretty cool.
Appreciate you guys.
But we're here to talk about the Yankees and how they can improve. So the Yankees are the best team in baseball right now. That's no doubt, and they're playing like it. But the thing is, at the deadline, everyone's going to get better. So if the Yankees do nothing, well, then they're going to fall behind, and they're not that best team anymore. So they have some issues. They have catching. They have a Gallo/Hicks problem, and all that's going to need to get sorted out. But Jason, I mean, what would you do if you're Brian Cashman?
Well, if I'm Brian Cashman, I think I'm going to have to acknowledge a few things first. Yeah, they are the best team in baseball, but they do have holes. Okay, and I think the elephant in the room that not a lot of people want to talk about is: are you actually going to re-sign Aaron Judge? Right? Because that's going to have a ripple effect. And if you don't, what do you do with them? Right? Because this talks about them wanting to trade for Juan Soto, right? And there's some other things we'll talk about too. And the fact is, if they trade for Juan Soto, Judge's not coming back. I think that's important to acknowledge, right? Because this isn't George Steinbrenner. He would re-sign both. This is Hal Steinbrenner. I don't think he will, right? So do they keep Judge, right? And so that's one of the bigger things in the room, because he is one of the mainstays of this lineup. So, and would trading for Juan Soto disrupt team chemistry? We don't know. And how much would you have to give up for him? Now, with that said, there are other guys that they could get for the outfield that would not require moving Judge, like Brian Reynolds, right? And he would be a very expensive piece to get, but he would stabilize center field and give them a prototypical leadoff hitter too, right? And then you can kind of set the lineup a little bit differently, because there's a rotating leadoff hitter almost every day with the team. So Brian Reynolds would be a guy that I would investigate for a trade, but they're going to have to put up a pretty big, hefty package. Now, another outfield is from Kansas City Royals, Andrew Benintendi. What I would look to do there is do a multiplayer trade, because they need a reliever too, right? At this point, they can never have enough relief depth, never have enough starting pitching depth, right? And the relief depth, particularly with the guys that have gone down and not wanting to overuse some of the guys that they have. And I would go for a Scott Barlow. He's their top reliever. And Brian Cashman has a tendency to get guys with high strikeouts and big arms on bad teams, like he did with Clay Holmes. And going after a trade like Benintendi and Scott Barlow would allow them to address two holes at once and kind of stabilize the bullpen a little bit, give them another weapon, and give them that outfielder who's a 27-year-old lefty hitter, good contact skills. He's playoff tested, having played with Boston. And I think he'd thrive in a big environment here. And again, he would not cost as much as Brian Reynolds. He's not going to cost as much as Juan Soto. And the Yankees do have a lot of prospects that they could trade. And they won't have to give up Volpe or Dominguez or anything like that to get this kid. So, but if they could stabilize the outfield there, and it'd also make it easier for them to move Gallo or Hicks or both of them at some point, right? So that's one thing I think that would be a good idea. And the other thing would be bringing another starting pitcher. I love the way the starting pitchers are growing right now, throwing. But keep in mind too, my two guys in particular, Nestor Cortez and Luis Severino, I do think there's going to be some innings limitations on them at some point to keep them healthy. Nestor's never thrown more than 100 innings in a season. And Luis Severino hasn't thrown a half a season since 2018. So they're pitching brilliantly right now, but at some point I don't want them to get hurt or wear down. So going after a Luis Castillo or Frankie Montez would be a good idea too. Adding another stabilizing starting pitcher, I think, would be a good idea to get some more depth in there, because with Chad Green going down, we had a bullpen option or a starting option, Luis Hill. He's also down. So I think adding a starter with major league experience would be a wise idea. And personally, if they can get a starter or reliever and an outfielder at the deadline, and I think these are all gettable trades or gettable moves, then I think it'll be a World Series contender. So those three moves particularly would be my types of moves, and they don't have to make all three.
Yeah.
With Cincinnati too, I mean, I would go for the other Luis Sessa. If I'm going to go for Luis Castillo, I think he was a reliable reliever with the Yankees, good clubhouse guy. So I'd like to do multiplayer trades if I could. I mean, Cashman tends to be good at that. So that's kind of what I would do if I were Cashman. Now the question is, what would you guys do?
Well, I got to agree with you on the Benintendi move. I think Benintendi there's too many things to like about the guy. Just penciling him in that lineup. Lefty bat. Yankees need lefty bats. The contact skills would be absolutely phenomenal for this team. Short porch, he could run into some home runs. Power numbers would go up, and he's played with Boston. Boston's an electric atmosphere, and I think he could play in New York. And I think there's too much to like about him, and I think the Brian Cashman should really look into trying to get Andrew Benintendi, because I really like the guy. As far as starting pitching goes, they've been in they've talked about Montez in the offseason. He could be a guy, possibly, albeit the contract situation. If Madison Bumgarner keeps pitching well, I think he could be a possibility. And just knowing Cashman, he always tends to go for guys that he's always liked. Later down the line, he'll get them, and he's always liked Madison Bumgarner. I think you put Bumgarner in a playoff atmosphere, I think he would really thrive in that. And there's a lot of different moves, a lot of different ways the Yankees can go. As far as their roster, I want to talk about this a little bit. The Yankees have the best record in baseball. They've shown they're a very good team.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're comparing, a lot of people compare the 98 team, 2009, all those teams in the late 90s, those teams didn't really have that many holes. You look at this team, and it's kind of an anomaly in a sense. They do have a decent amount of holes. You got Hicks, really done nothing all year. Joey Gallo, done nothing pretty much all year. The catching spot, great defensively, but they're getting little to none offensive production there. So it's very intriguing. So, and it's a good thing if you look at it this way, saying, well, we do have holes, but we still have the best record in baseball, and we can only improve our holes to make us better. So that's the way I look at it. But I think there's a lot of different areas and ways the Yankees can go about this. And I think it'd be very intriguing to see what they do at the deadline and how they shape up this team to make a deep playoff push.
You bring a good point, too, if I can interject. You bring a good point with Bumgarner, too. He's playoff tested. He's money in the playoffs. He comes from the lefty side. Yeah, he does have a little bit of a heavy contract, but I'm sure the Yankees could figure something out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with regards to the holes in the lineup, you're right about Hicks and the way I look at it, both of them are like 0 for 22 with several foul tips. That's kind of the way I look at it with their offensive production. So personally, with the catching, that one's a tough one too, because I think I like what Trevino's doing.
Yeah.
The way I look at it is I will sacrifice the lack of production from catching if they can continue to pitch the way they're pitching. So that to me is a good offset, because at the end of the day, I like Sean Murphy, but he's not hitting the cover off the ball either. And Trevino, and I do feel Ben Wartburg's probably going to be platooning with Trevino probably in 2023, and I think they'll move on from Higgy at that point. But I think the outfield is the key with Hicks and Gallo, like you said. I mean, it's pretty much almost an automatic out, and that's like the 98 team. There were no automatic outs. That lineup was relentless. You're not getting anybody out, and that's still, which is what impresses me about this team, is that they still have automatic outs and they're still in first place. With the best record in baseball. So to me, it's a testament to what some of the things that Cashman's done, that Boone's done. So I have to give them credit where credit's due too.
Yeah,
I mean, I would say.
Okay.
Sorry to cut you off there.
You go. No, I'll go.
The biggest problem, I think, with the Yankees, and this was with it last year. I mean, the bottom of the lineup was just completely dead.
Brutal.
And granted, we saw it in the wild card game, where you have like the first 4 hitters were, actual hitters, and then just fell off a cliff. You'd be lucky if one of those guys got on base. And I mean, you're just putting way too much pressure on the pitching then.
Oh yeah.
Catching, I don't really see them upgrading just because there's not many good catchers that have both defense and offense. It's like, yeah, you could get Wilson Contreras, but I mean, that's like a Gary Sanchez with better hitting. I don't think they want to do that.
Yeah.
So Sean Murphy, I guess, would be a little bit of an upgrade. I just don't know if that's worth it. Going back to Benintendi, though, me and Ryan were talking about this for a while last night. It brings up the conversation who's going to play center field. Benintendi's not a center fielder. He hasn't played center field since 2019, and he started 6 games there. So if you want to run Judge out there every day and you're not worried about him getting injured, then sure, but I don't see the Yankees doing that.
Same.
So then I guess you'd be forcing Hicks to get in the lineup. That would bank for too many outfielders. Gallo would have to get moved. It would be a lot of moving parts. You wouldn't have a true center fielder. I think if the Yankees want to get rid of Hicks, then they're going to need to get a center fielder. Although Benintendi is the perfect fit, lefty bat contact, he's just not a center fielder. And then the bullpen, you'll have Herman coming back later in the season, which should help a little bit. And I think getting one more starter and then moving one of the starters to the bullpen could really be the move. Just to have another long reliever. I mean, we saw when Michael King's on how nice that is to have a game where you can just pitch one guy and lock it down. So maybe a guy like Luis Castillo, I don't know. But.
Funny you say that, because one of the things that I've said for a year now is having enough long relief guys to kind of bridge the gap from the starters to the relievers, the short relievers. And like King, and I thought transitioning Nestor Cortes and Severino into long relief because of the innings limits that they're going to be put on allows you to get 3 or 4 innings of darts from Severino, 3 or 4 good innings from Nestor Cortes, because at some point, my fear is that they're both going to wear down, right? So because of the innings that they have not thrown, so transitioning them to long relief at some point would be a good idea, while adding a starter, because you have these extra weapons in the bullpen to go with King and Clark Schmidt and even a guy like Manny Banuelos or something like that, but without having to bring up Ken Moldichuk if he's not ready or something like that. So if you get a starter, you have that guy in there, and then you have guys who are already starter trained going long relief. So it's easier to go long relief from the starter than it is from short relief to long relief. And we have the guys that can go down into short relief right now already. So adding a starter would be a good idea. And you make a good point about Benintendi too, which is one reason I bring up Brian Reynolds, because he is a true prototypical center fielder, right? And then he would be a leadoff hitter, which would push the rest of the lineup down, and then you get some of those automatic outs there. And I do think Gallo would be easier to trade because he doesn't have 3 years left on his contract. Hicks does, which is one reason I think they're continuing to play them on regulars to try to increase their trade value. It's not really working that well right now, unfortunately. But if the Yankees are willing to eat probably half of Hicks' contract, I think they can move him somewhere. We'll see, but because I don't think they want to DFA him, and because they're going to have to eat all the contract. I think they'd rather trade them and get somebody to assume some of the money, right? And the same thing probably goes to Gallo. I think they're going to stick with Gallo too and let him reestablish trade value. He's probably easier to move at the deadline. So, but would Brian Reynolds be your guy for center field, or would it be someone else?
Well, he's the perfect fit.
He really is a great fit, but it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you a lot, and it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting. I love it. I just don't know if it's going to happen. I just don't know the probability of that actually falling into fruition. Going back to Benintendi and the whole center field thing, I think that's really interesting because I feel, in my opinion, that Benintendi checks too much boxes not to get. And I think the way I would go about doing it, I think right now Judge is the best center fielder on the team. Defensively, offensively, obviously. Aaron Hicks is really providing you nothing on the team.
True.
So I think you could make Judge basically the full-time center fielder. And then, if you want to DH him some days, you could put, LaCastro in there. Or, once a week, maybe Benintendi could go out there in center field. Christian, I think you said last night he's played 24 career games center field.
Oh,
Benintendi?
I think he played more at the beginning of his career. My point was he hasn't played in a while though.
Yeah, I think he could get the job done if you're playing him once a week, in center field. And I think you can make it work. And with Benintendi, you're just checking too many boxes, in my opinion. I feel like you just say, all right, whatever. That's just my opinion on the whole Benintendi thing. And going about the long relievers, the bullpen, stuff like that, I feel like you get another starter, you make him another long reliever. That comes really, really scary in the playoffs because the Yankees have a lot of guys, and they have a lot of guys, more than enough guys to cover up innings. So, that basically, and with that, every game's, winnable. If you're down 2 runs, we're not, Yankees aren't going to necessarily always have to put in, their lower leverage guys play for tomorrow. They're going to be in every single game if they have those guys. So I feel like that becomes a really big threat. And that's what I got on those 2 things.
I also share your concerns about both your concerns about Judge as an everyday center fielder. I worry about him getting hurt too, right?
Yes.
So getting a guy to rotate, and I think it's important to give Judge a day off on a regular, Stanton a day off on the regular. These guys are big dudes too. So to keep them healthy, a DH day and an off day, even if you rotated in every, 10 days or something like that, keeping these guys healthy. I would take 135 healthy games out of these guys instead of running them to the point where they get hurt and then missing a long stretch of time. When they have to, it is a revamping period, especially with Stanton. It takes him a few weeks to kind of get back going. He's very streaky too. So
yes,
I think rotating an off day and a DH day with these guys would be good. And so Benintendi, to me, his versatility plays better. And I don't think we can get Brian Reynolds unless we give up Jason Dominguez. I personally don't see it. And he, to me, is the finished product of Jason Dominguez. It's what we want him to become. And I get Jason Dominguez is very popular. He's a highly touted prospect, but in order to get Brian Reynolds or somebody like that, you're going to have to give up that. Like you're going to have to give up Volpe to get a Soto or something like that. And and I know Cashman generally doesn't do that. So it doesn't like doing that, but we're in a position right now to get guys like that because of prospects we have. So
yes.
It's a different reality that we haven't been in a while. So it's going to be a fascinating trade deadline just the next couple of months to see exactly what the Yankees are willing to do and what Cashman's willing to do, right? And that's why I brought up Judge in the beginning, because we are in a unique position where, he turned down the money just like Soto did, right? So the reality is the Nationals are going to be moving on from Soto, and we are also in a position that if they did happen to bring Soto in, I know he's the elephant in the room kind of thing, but they also have the ability to restock the farm by moving Judge. So his free agent value is at a super high, but so is his trade value. And I get a lot of heat, guys, from a lot of people who think I'm nuts for presenting it, but it's a reality that if you're going to give a 10-year deal to somebody, is it going to be Soto or Judge? Right at this point. Because if you give Soto a 10-year deal, and Judge, Soto's 10-year deal right now would pretty much end when Judge's 10-year deal starts. Almost. So the age difference is important, right? And Judge is, unfortunately, he's a victim of a late service time clock, right?
Yes.
That means he's hitting free agency at 31, where these guys hit it at 25 or 26. That's working against him. So I love Judge, and he's the franchise player, obviously, but how much more can they give him at $30.5 million per year? Starting at 31 is the question. And I think it's important for them to kind of figure that out and decide. Because what I love them to get Soto and Judge. Oh God, yeah. Could you imagine the lineup? It would be murderous row, right? Nobody would get these guys out. But the reality is, with how I think it's one of the decisions they have to make, which makes it a very fascinating next couple of months, right? So, I mean, that's why I mentioned guys like Brian Reynolds, because they can keep him and re-sign Judge if they want. And Reynolds or Benintendi and Judge, to me, is a little bit more firepower than Soto alone.
Yeah.
So, I like Soto's age and whatnot, but I think that, to me, is the biggest elephant in the room. I think they can get pitching. I think they can get relief, but the outfield situation seems to be the more fascinating situation here because of the guys we have and because of the guys that are available or might be available, which I think is a bigger piece of the puzzle.
The outfield, I mean, the outfield is just, it's really weird. I mean, right? I mean, you got Joey Gallo, who's been doing basically nothing all year. Aaron Hicks, he's not even like a competent player anymore. It's really, really unique in the sense, like, this team's in first place. They have the best record in baseball, yet they have these two guys in their lineup that can't do anything. So it's very interesting. And the Yankees gave up a decent amount to get Gallo. So I don't know if Cashman's going to want to get rid of Gallo per se. But I mean, it's going to be very, very interesting. And we know Cashman well. He does often come out of nowhere with a move. You know, no one had Donaldson on the Yankees' radar. You know, IKF a little bit, but no one expected that move at all. Anthony Rizzo last year, Red Sox the whole way. Red Sox. Boom. He goes to the Yankees. We heard the Red Sox weren't even close to getting him. So
I didn't even know Clay Holmes was alive before they traded him. Never heard of him ever.
And I have his jersey now.
Right? Yeah, it's crazy. And they traded Hoyt Park, and people were going nuts.
Yeah, I was.
Look what we got.
I called Christian right after that deal. I said, I am done with Brian Cashman. We just traded this guy. He's batting like .330. We could use him on our team. And then Christian goes at the end. He's like, well, they must see something in this guy. And I'm like, they better. And you know, Clay Holmes is one of the best relievers in baseball.
The best reliever in baseball. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, he's right at the very top, and he's perfect for the Yankees. But Mike, I have a question for you guys. I mean, what do you guys feel about the Judge situation?
I think what it comes to, you also have the fan pressure. I mean, the fans would lose their minds if the Yankees didn't re-sign Judge. So if you got Soto, then you know everyone would kind of forget about it, and he would be the new guy. But if Judge just walks away at the end of the season and you're kind of sitting with nothing, I mean, Yankees fans would be outraged.
Yeah. And I don't think they're going to trade him if they do trade him, for a bag of balls, because this guy's going to get a massive return. You can pretty much get what you want if you trade with the Padres or the Dodgers. If you trade with the Dodgers, you could probably get Gavin Lux. You could probably get Dustin May or Russell. Like, you can get a very healthy return from the teams that you would trade with. And this is not getting Soto, like getting a lot of guys in return. And yeah, it would be short-term insanity. Fans would be running around with their hair on fire. I totally get that. But at some point, letting him walk for nothing would be insanity. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I do think he's going to go to the highest bidder in free agency. So if Texas comes out of nowhere and gives him $350 million, he's going to put on a cowboy hat at the press conference and say how much he loves Texas barbecue. It's just the way it's going to go. And in my opinion, do I think he wants to come back to the Yankees? Yes, but I also think this is his one chance to cash in, and he wants to take advantage of it. And I can't fault the guy for that. So especially if you win the MVP, he's going to be through the roof.
I mean, it's going to be very, very interesting what happens with Aaron Judge. And, you know, other than Robinson Cano, we've never really seen this happen to the Yankees throughout their whole history of being a club. The Yankees always get the best team. You know, they're in the highest market, you know, other than LA now, but they're in the highest market. They always get the best players. You know, they would never let any guy go like that. But, you know, things change, you know, now like everyone's in it nowadays. It's a different world. And, you know, other than Robinson Cano, like I said, there hasn't really been like any guy like that to leave the Yankees. And Robinson Cano he was a great player for the Yanks, but he wasn't the face of the franchise. That was Derek Jeter. Yeah. So if Aaron Judge left, Yankees fans would throw Cashman. They would go insane.
Yeah.
You would just hear them screaming on the Michael Kay show. It would just be insane. So I feel like Cashman, I think he knows how important it is to re-sign Aaron Judge. And, if Aaron Judge goes out there and, wins AL MVP and, he wins a World Series with this team, then at some point you just say whatever and you do sign him. But you could look at it the other way and be like, all right, well, we won a World Series. He did win MVP. I mean, we did win a ring. So maybe there's less pressure to get him then. There's a lot of different ways you can go about it. I feel that Cashman's number one goal is to re-sign Aaron Judge. And yeah, I agree with you. I think Judge will go to the highest bidder. And, I also think the California ties will play a big factor because, he's expressed a lot how he grew up a San Francisco Giants fan and, not just playing for the Giants necessarily, but being out west, home. So it's very interesting, but I also feel like Brian Cashman has to realize, and although that's his number one goal, I feel like not necessarily put it aside, but you got to look at what's going on right now. Aaron Judge might win AL MVP. The Yankees have the best record in baseball. You got a really good team, so you're gonna have to improve it, and really you have a really good shot at making a run at this thing, and I think that should be his number one goal right now. Obviously, the Judge thing has a ripple effect, but there's not very often your team is the best record in baseball. So
yeah, and adding to it, complementing it with some complementary pieces would be, you want to go for the World Series, you're gonna have to add to this team.
Yes.
Yeah, the difference from last year, it was like, who can we get to just get us in the playoffs? We get to have this talk, and it's like, we're already the best. We're just seeing how we can get better. So,
we're
much different this year.
We're imagining a deep run in the postseason now, imagining the World Series, even in an extended playoffs now. Expand away of other teams who might not have to do as much are still going to get in. And the playoffs are a crapshoot. Guys can go on a heater.
Yes.
Sudden, the Milwaukee Brewers are in the World Series or whatever it is, and they're a good team. So
yeah.
But the Yankees, I agree with you guys. They need to fortify the team.
We're gonna wrap this up here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And as always, Bronx Talks, keep talking.
I'll have you guys on my channel in the summer too.
Awesome. We appreciate that.